Hi there, welcome to a series of videos called English for Emerson. On this channel we learn some basic English reading and writing. You need something to write with and something to write on. You know, I'm making these videos for my son Emerson and trying to teach him some English. He's not in an English speaking country, so that's what's going on with these videos. I got a good saying today. Teaches a lot in a very few words. That's what these sayings do that I've been teaching. They teach a lot, they communicate a lot in very few words. We're starting with a capital T right here. T-H-A-T. That spells that. It does not spell T-hat. It spells that. Then we got I-S for is. J-U-S-T spells just. The. And then the next word is going to be tip. Tip. How would you spell tip? What letter would you start with if you wanted to spell tip? I hope you're thinking about a T. What would come next in the word tip? I hope you're thinking about an I. And then what would you use to spell tip? I'm hoping you're thinking about a P. That is just the tip of. Now we know this is one of those words in English that's very strange. And there's a heck of a lot of strange words in English. But of is, I think, one of the strangest. How did they get an F to make the sound V, V, V? Makes absolutely no sense. It should be spelled O-V. Why they spelled it O-F, I have no idea. But that spells of. Okay, that does not spell off. Off is spelled with two Fs. Of is with one. Strange word. That is just the tip of the iceberg. That is just the tip of the iceberg. I'll put up a picture of an iceberg. What is an iceberg? Up in the very far north and in the very far south on this planet, there are huge bodies of ice. Especially in the south, but there's up in the north too. They got glaciers, massive rivers of ice. And eventually, one of them will break off. Like it gives birth. Basically, the glacier gives birth to an iceberg and it falls into the ocean and it starts to float away. Some of these things can be absolutely massive, but they don't really look like that much, most of these icebergs. What you see floating out in the water doesn't look like that much. Well, 90% of an iceberg is underwater. Only a little bit is above the water. 90% is below the water. So even though it might not look like much when you're going by, you can't see the vast majority of the iceberg. It's down under the water. They're very, very dangerous. If you see a huge iceberg, the one that you see is huge, then what's underneath the water is absolutely gigantic. Okay? Very dangerous to a ship. If it hits it, it's not good. It's a saying that we have. That is just the tip of the iceberg. It doesn't just apply to icebergs. It applies to everything in life. Well, what do I mean? Well, with people, for example. Everybody that you meet, you kind of figure people out after a while. You kind of know what to expect. You kind of know what to expect from people. Some people behave in ways that are a little bit odd. It's like, yeah, that person is just kind of different. Well, trust me. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Once you really get to know somebody and you actually kind of see what's underneath the surface of what they their behavior, you realize there's a whole lot more to every person going on underneath the surface than what you actually see in terms of how they behave. There's a whole lot going on the inside. Sometimes they'll kind of open it up a little bit and you can kind of really get to know what's happening on the inside, but not that much. But there will always be little clues. There will always be little things that come out that kind of let you know. But what's really happening under the surface can be massive. It's just life. It's like that in every country, every person. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Most things are hidden from the human eye. You got to really pay attention to know what's really going on underneath. It's so true. It's so true. It's true about me as well. Just life. People say this all the time in English. When something happens and you actually hear about it, it's on the news or somebody does something, it's like, whoa, what was that about? Someone might say, that is just the tip of the iceberg. It means you have no idea what's really going on underneath the surface, how big of a problem there is. How big of a problem there is. All you see is the tip of the iceberg. Very important saying in English. It carries a lot of meaning and it's also very, very true. And that's all I got to say on this edition of English for Emerson. I hope you write this down and think about it and remember it. Very important saying. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.